oh, there's a need, I thought. Turns out, I find out that these people like to come to Santa Fe and buy it. They don't want to buy it from some yokel in Dallas. But I'd hang stuff on my wall and have a price on it that I thought was nuts. And people would come in and look at stuff, and then they'd go to Santa Fe and bring me something back that was exactly like it. They paid twice as much, sometimes even my own stuff that I would bring out here and wholesale to dealers.
I have Michael McKissick, Waterbird Traders. Finally, Michael. We've been doing this show in Santa Fe for like 8 days, and every day I'd go over to Michael and say, let's
solo.
Go. Yeah, but when you're solo, that's one of the things. You're doing this show by yourself. You're 80 years old.
Well, close enough.
79 plus some months. But you're an older exhibitor, and you have to do it all by yourself, and it's really hard.
Pretty much. Yeah. Although I have had an ex-business partner of 20 years ago sort of give me some help because I've got some knee issues.
Yeah.
So anyhow, but he's been a big help. So anyhow, I have to really mention him.
Yeah, but you've had a great show too.
Yeah, I've had a good show. I've had a good show.
So we were talking on the way over here, and I found out that you've been in the business for a very long time. But what I don't know about you, and I hear a Texas accent. I know you live in Texas. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Texas, basically. I'm from Oklahoma. I'm from a little town called Sand Springs, which is a suburb of Tulsa now.
Yeah, it is.
But my dad worked for the Atomic Energy Commission during the war at Oak Ridge. And we lived in Oklahoma. He was working out there. And when he was through with that, he moved. He got a job in Houston right after the war, 1945. Well, it was, 1945. Right. And we moved down to Houston and lived down there until 55. And
where were you born? Oklahoma?
I was born in Oklahoma.
But you were in Houston as a little
child.
Kid.
Yeah. When I was 3, we moved to Houston. Yeah.
And what did he do down in Houston?
He was a salesman initially, and then he worked as an executive, raised himself up in the company, and eventually he was I don't know what his exact title was, but he was the president of the northern division of the company and the executive vice president of the whole company.
Wow, so he did really well.
Yeah, so he had made a man of himself. He was an old oil field worker.
Yeah.
My granddad worked for Phillips Petroleum, servicing what they call Christmas trees.
What is a Christmas tree? I should know that.
I think they're got something to do with the valves and bells and whistles of the way the distribution goes in the oil field.
And so he made it more as an executive at the end, right?
Yeah. He unfortunately died at the age of 69 from lung cancer. He was a man of his time and drank and smoked like crazy, and it caught up with him, bless his heart. And it took his death to get me to straighten up.
Yeah, because you were smoking and stuff.
Yeah, I was doing everything you didn't do.
Yeah.
And it still took me a while because that's an insidious thing.
Oh, yeah.
So anyhow, anybody that's out there that smokes, don't do it. It'll kill you.
Well, and so did you grow up in Houston?
Pretty much. We moved in 55 when I was 13, and we moved to Fort Worth. And
that's a switch, really.
Yeah, it was sort of.
Yeah.
And I moved. I went to high school there, and graduated from high school 60, 59, which you were talking about, when I developed an interest in this material.
Yeah, how did you develop an interest? When did you first?
Well, I was working for a fella named Les Bowman, who was an old ex-World War II fighter ace in Cody, Wyoming, that had bought a hunting outfit. And I was the wrangler and took care of the horses and shoed stuff and whatever.
How'd you end up out there, though? How'd you end up in Cody?
A friend of my dad's knew him and had hunted up there. And there were a lot of heavy-duty guys that went up there. There was a guy named Colonel Townsend Whalen and a lot of old-time Ted Trueblood, who was the old original publisher of Outdoor Life, I think was the name of it.
Life, maybe.
Yeah. And anyhow, I went up there and I was sort of familiar with things, and I learned quick. And we were doing grizzly bear hunts.
Wow.
Yeah. and spotting sheep for the sheep season and doing fishing, trout fishing stuff. And
Had you hunted and fished at this point, or was that all kind
I
of
was doing it a little bit, but I was more taking care of the horses when the bears got after us.
Yeah.
And which was a fun thing to do because they'd shoot one and maybe not hit it right, and we'd have to go after it in the bushes.
Oh, yeah.
And hunting a wounded grizzly in the bushes is not a fun thing
Yeah.
to do if you're,
Yeah.
being 17 years old or however old it was.
So you were still in high school when you were doing
I
this?
I was still in high school. Anyhow, I worked up there, but the Indian aspect of things took place in all the businesses and the bars, I have to say, and such, had Native American material nailed to the wall. I mean, it was almost like you couldn't even put your hand up there without touching a piece.
And this is Cody, right?
Yeah, this was in Cody, and the Whitney Museum was like in a log cabin at the time. There was nothing up there fair. And I just loved this stuff. And I was riding rodeo in the Cody Stampede, riding bucking horses. And yeah. And it cost $15. That was a lot of money because I was getting $50 a month. And the Indian people would take blankets and put stuff out around the perimeter of the rodeo grounds. And I walked around and I'd see stuff, new stuff, old stuff, and I bought a pair of moccasins. Because there was a guy up there that came to hunt named Bob Six. And Bob Six at the time was married to Ethel Merman. Ethel Merman had just done Gypsy on Broadway. And they flew in and were bear hunting and drinking a lot. And but anyhow, he had a pair of Cheyenne moccasins that I just adored. And he'd go off through the bushes and beads just be flying everywhere, and I just hated it. So anyhow, I bought a pair of moccasins for $26, and Mr. B. Bowman, who I worked for, just tore me up because, son, you'll never get anywhere spending your money on crap like that. So,
and were these new moccasins?
No, they were older moccasins,
old, yeah.
but I bought a pair of fully beaded moccasins instead of a pair of fully quilled moccasins because they fit me.
And you were going to wear them?
I was wearing. I wore them occasionally. I didn't want to wear them too much. But we'd go down in there was a creek that ran down through the area, and the Indians had a camp down there, and we'd go down and eat dinner with them and stuff. And it was a fun thing to do, and I learned a lot, and I met a lot of nice people. I know there was a couple of times that I'll tell one story that. There was a couple of cowboys from Montana came down. They were riding an old, I don't know what it was, a 52 pickup or something like that. And they came bouncing into the camp, and they had a tarp thrown over the back of the thing and pulled up. All these guys gathered around everything, and they threw back the tarp, and it was full of dead eagles.
Oh my gosh.
And they had been shooting eagles, and they sold them to these guys $5 a piece. And it didn't take 45 minutes, all of them were gone. But boy, you talk about stink.
So those were sold to the
Indians.
To
the natives bought them
because they wanted them for their costumes.
They wanted them for costuming, and they wanted them for ceremonial purposes and everything else. But these guys, some of the ones on the bottom had been there a while.
Oh yeah,
you know. But I remember that specifically because I remember, and where we worked at the LB Bar Ranch was the name of the ranch. Was on the Shoshone River, the South Fork of the Shoshone, right up past Coulter's Rock, past Buffalo Bill's old place, because I used to buck hay at Buffalo Bill's old place. And above all the major buildings, the blacksmith and the garage and everything else, was a dead eagle, spread eagled across the thing, and feathers were all over the floor, the ground, and people driving over them and everything else. And I picked up a bunch of them, I remember, and took them home with me. And of course, this was back just about the time they were, 59. This is about the time they passed the law.
Yeah.
So, and all that stuff's gone now.
Yeah.
But I just hated to see that. Anyhow, that's how I got started.
Yeah. So you got started by really being around Native Americans. You bought some beadwork from them, right?
Right.
And so you come back to high school from that. Did you have one more year of high school, or did you graduate?
I graduated in '60 and went to college. Went to college for a year, and then I went to work and driving a truck. I drove a truck for a while, and then I went to college for 6 months, and then I didn't have any money, so I had to work. And then in '63, I went overseas and lived in Paris.
Okay, let's back this up a little bit because there's a lot of things that have gone on that.
Yeah.
So you graduate from high school. You go to what college? You go for a year or two?
Arlington State College at the time, and now it's Arlington State University or ASU. It used to be in the A&M system. Now it's in the University of Texas.
And you just thought, this isn't for me. There's something else out there.
Pretty much. I wasn't an academic kind of person, that kind of academics. I was a painting and drawing major. I mean, I had, I was an art major at the time.
Were you drawing and painting as a kid, doing a lot of that artwork?
Yeah, I used to get a kick out of doing that.
Did you ever think you might be an artist as a living?
I didn't think I'd be able to do it. I saw too many people that tried to do it and couldn't, And then I was also interested in this other stuff. And I had some material and I met some people that had some material, and I sold some stuff to somebody else and made $10 or whatever it was, and I sort of thought I might like to do that.
So, and that was the Indian material you were buying and selling at that time.
Yeah.
So you were kind of starting to trade in it right after high school.
Exactly.
And where would you find material?
It'd show up in shops. There was one old gentleman named, what was his name? Frank Williams. He had been an associate professor of education for the DISD, the Dallas Independent School District. And he had an antique shop. He had retired. And he handled a lot of Indian material. And I'd get stuff from him. And he'd let me take it and pay it off and all this kind of stuff. So that was nice.
And were you selling it because you go, I can make a living on this? Or was it to help you?
It was just something that I'd get a new piece.
You could get more artwork, right?
I was putting stuff together. Put together a little collection, which actually was the foundation of the shop when I opened my shop originally. The initial collection was my inventory.
And so you bounce around driving a truck for a while.
Yeah, I drove a truck, and then I was a salesman, and I designed or I helped design cryogenic systems for hospitals and oil field servicing companies and different kinds of applications, like squirting liquid nitrogen on old tires to make them break up easier and things like that. Yeah.
And what was your dad hoping you would do?
My dad was working for his company.
Yeah. Did he ever say, "Oh, come work for me, son"? Yeah,
and I did. And that's something out there, kids. Don't work for your dad.
It didn't work out well.
No, he was a legend in his own time. Really.
Yeah, so he was tough.
Hard. You got to do twice as much to get anything done, and I loved him dearly. But it's tough to work for your family.
And he was tough.
Yeah, he was a tough guy.
Yeah, he went through. He was in World War I. He worked on.
No, he wasn't in World War I. World War II. Well, he wasn't in the war. He was in the war effort.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah,
but he worked on the weld.
Yeah, he was a master welder.
Yeah,
is how he made his living.
Yeah, that's a tough.
Yeah, it's tough way to make a living.
So then you decide you're going to go to Europe?
Yeah, I went over to a buddy of mine and I decided we'd go to somewhere. So we got together some money. I put together $500, and we flew on a non-sched airline called Overseas National. And you go from Gander, Newfoundland to LaGuardia Airport to Gander, Newfoundland to Shannon, Ireland to Frankfurt, Maine. And we got off the plane and we were just wandering around
in Germany.
In Germany, in Frankfurt. And went downtown and bought a 1953 Volkswagen for $250 and put it on down the road and drove all over and where'd we go? Went to Stuttgart, stayed in Stuttgart a while, went to Vienna, lived in Vienna a while, went back down through Nancy, went through Paris, lived in Paris, went down to Aix-en-Provence, went to Nice.
You're what, 25?
No, I turned 21 in Germany.
Oh, you were young still. So this was right after.
Young.
So you didn't really have any plan. You just wanted to see Europe.
No, we just wanted to see Europe. It was Europe on $5 a day. I mean, it was one of those kind of deals, and it was cool. And we poked around over there for several months. And
were you looking for any material, Indian material at that time?
I didn't see. No, I wouldn't.
You were probably more interested in girls.
I was interested in getting something to eat
and a beer.
No, yeah. Well, we won't get into that aspect of it with respect, but to my wife. But no, it was a really great trip. I met a lot of wonderful people that I wish I had kept up with.
Yeah.
One thing that I did see when I was over there, Indian related, I worked in a movie theater, a Kino, in a little town called Boilerspach.
So you had to earn some money. 'Cause you were running out of
we
money?
were trying to make some money. I was driving a truck in Paris, and anyhow, but we got a job in a Kino. He was running the popcorn machine, and I was running the projector and all that. And in the news reels, they had a thing called Indianerklubben, which is the Germans have loved since Karl May.
Right.
Indian
Great
stuff.
writer.
Yeah,
Great for them.
great German writer for them, who was we won't get into that.
Yeah, he never went to America.
Yeah, but anyhow, these guys made wonderful beaded material and outfits, and they were all dressed up in teepees and hat and bonnets and everything. And they had a newsreel on these guys, and it was really interesting. And I thought, and it sort of rekindled my interest a little bit, maybe. I don't know for sure.
And was that in Germany?
Yeah, I was in Germany. Yeah, in Boilerspach, which a little town between Stuttgart and Weiblangen. And
so how long did you stay in Europe?
a couple, 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were there long enough to enjoy ourselves.
And then back to
the USA. And then Charlotte, my wife of 55 years, and I had been dating before I left. And she was a now they say flight attendant for American Airlines. And when I got back, we got back together again. This was in 1964, and got married. And they made her quit because at that time, stewardesses couldn't fly.
if they were married.
They made them, yeah, they're married, so they made them quit. So anyhow, that started, and then we had 3 kids after 66, 72, 73.
So what happened when Vietnam War came? Did you already have kids?
No, I was busted up. I had busted myself up playing football in college, and they 1Y'd me at the time.
What was a 1Y?
1Y was sort of a deferment for somebody that had a medical something, and it was early in the war. If it had been 67, boy, I'd have been cannon fodder. It's being 64. It was early in the game, so
they didn't need the bodies.
And I got married. That made me a 2Y. And then when we had our first child in 66, that was 3Y. And I had a deferment up till 30. And by that time, they had taken care of everything. So NAM was luckily not in my background.
Yeah, because a lot of the dealers in our business.
Bobby Vandenberg and Bob Capoon and a lot of people that I know that went and Jeter, a lot of those people,
Higgins,
Mike Higgins, Jeff Hingespaw, and they saw the elephant over there. It wasn't a pretty thing. And
so when you are back, you get married, you got a couple kids. What are you doing for a living? What are you
I'm working for this company doing this cryogenic thing.
Oh, so you're doing that?
Yeah. And I actually worked for them for 20 years. And but I was doing the Indian thing as a sideline. 72, I opened up a bank account under the name of Waterbird Traders.
Yeah.
And in 1983, I had 20 years, and I retired. I was 40 years old. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got my $158.72 pension check. And and opened a gallery in Dallas. And
that was 83?
That was 83. And it took off. I was really surprised. Actually, the reason I opened it, one of the reasons or one of the incentives I had was I came out to Santa Fe here, and people that I met at parties and whatever were from Dallas or Midland or Lubbock or Houston or somewhere like that. So there's a need, I thought. Turns out, I find out that these people like to come to Santa Fe and buy it. They don't want to buy it from some yokel in Dallas.
That's true.
I'd hang stuff on my wall and have price on it that I thought was, nuts. And people would come in and look at stuff, and then they'd go to Santa Fe and bring me something back that was exactly like it. They paid twice as much, sometimes even my own stuff that I would bring out here and wholesale to dealers. And they'd buy it out here and bring it to me and say, look what I bought.
Did you ever think, well, maybe I should just go out to Santa Fe and open a gallery there?
No, I wouldn't have done that. I had a family and wife and kids, and I wouldn't have done that to them. It was tough enough when I left the business that I was in,
right? Because
I had to make sure that I had back money, insurance. You've got to take care of your family. That's the basic thing.
Right.
So.
And that was 83 that you opened.
Yeah.
But you've been buying and selling kind of all along.
Oh, yeah, all the whole time.
Were you going to shows and things like that?
All through the 60s and 70s. Well, I started doing shows. Yeah, I started doing shows in 70, I want to say 72.
Mm-hmm.
And I did the first ones here, and we were talking coming over here, 70, I think it was 76, the one at the Hilton.
Mm-hmm.
And there were other shows. There was one show I remember that Kim Martindale was involved in that was at the Hilton, and they took all the furniture out of the rooms and made like individual galleries.
Yeah, it would have been like probably the early Don Bennett show, I would imagine.
Could have been, yeah. But anyhow, that was nice.
And so you started to meet all these people and develop relationships with these dealers.
Yeah, I knew some of them already because I'd been doing it with some of them. I knew, who did I know? Well, I knew some of the people. But Robert Parsons and I were good friends. We used to drive up to, he lived in a little town north of Paris, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd drive up, pick him up, and we'd go to Chicago and do the old Rhodium shows together.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to call the place the Omnivore.
And what was he doing at that time, Bob?
Robert had an apple orchard.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Yeah. And his dad had property up there on the Red River. And then he closed that and moved to Taos and has become very successful as a painting dealer.
Yeah. Yeah, but first was Native American art. For a very long time.
Yeah, he dealt in weavings primarily.
Yeah,
a little bit of beadwork, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but primarily fine weavings, good weavings.
And do you think those shows that you did were important in building the whole business, not just?
Sure,
I mean, just
perpetuated
exposure.
The interest of other people and sort of, drew a great crowd of people into the Indian collecting base.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so when you opened your gallery in '83, why Waterbird Traders?
It was Native American church thing. I thought it was nice. I liked I knew some people that were in the church, in the movement, and I chose the logo, because I thought it was sort of neat and distinctive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why do you do like that?
Right.
Why do you do things like that?
And so from '83 till now, really, but you've been in this. Were you in the same building?
No, I was in my original building from '83 till 2004.
That's a long time.
Yeah, and I was.
This was in
leveraged,
Dallas, right?
In Dallas on Greenville Avenue. And I was leveraged out, I think is the term for it. There was a used blue jean shop that's biggest market was SMU and kids and stuff next door to me. And they went to the guy that owned the place. And unfortunately, I'd sort of let my lease run out. And I was just working from month or year to year. And he came to me and he said, they're going to move out if I don't give them your space, So he gave me 90 days. I'd been there 21 years and they gave me 90 days to get out. And I just left a bunch of stuff in there.
Yeah.
Not Indian stuff, obviously,
but stuff.
Showcases and desks and
worth it.
crap that I didn't need. And I had a buddy that was a flea market dealer and I called him and I said, here's the key. Get in there and you can have anything you want. He was thrilled.
And so when this early time frame in the 80s and even early 90s, were you come to Santa Fe every summer and do shows?
Yeah, I did all this show. Don's show is the only show that there was. And, you'd set up at La Posada or you'd set up in wherever in your hotel room. That was the fun part of it. And also, I have to mention, I did Kim and Don's show in San Francisco. I started doing that in '82. And Lane Coulter and I would do that, and Robert. Parson.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that show up until, well, we sort of let it falter.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
This is the Marin show.
Yeah,
basically?
the Marin show. It's called the Marin show now, or was.
Yeah.
And I let that go because it just didn't seem to carry enough momentum.
Why do you think that is? Because it ran for many years.
Oh,
like
yeah.
30 years.
I think there were 2 or 3 reasons for it. One was the tribal art show. There's a big tribal art show at the, what's the name of that center down by the
in San
coast?
Francisco.
Yeah, in San Francisco.
That's at the
That was 2 weeks prior.
Yeah.
And then you had the Indian show right after that, and at the Frank Lloyd Wright Center. And it just, I don't know whether that sort of helped. And with respect to Native peoples and the contemporary art business, he supplemented Native material, contemporary Native material into the antique material. And I sort of think that might have had an impact on things.
In what respect?
Well, people came to see antique stuff.
I see.
And they didn't come to buy contemporary material. And I think it got to be as much or more contemporary stuff as it did. Because I went to one of his shows in Santa Monica, and it was almost all, I mean, there were a lot of Native people there with their own stuff.
Yeah. He's probably looking for that new market too.
It could have been, yeah. But that market is a big market, but my market wasn't it. You can't keep up with all the facets of the diamonds. I mean, you've got weaving, pottery, baskets, jewelry, kachina dolls, all this stuff that you've got to know all about.
Right.
And if you do specialize, some people specialize, but I've been lucky enough to be able to absorb a lot of material in my mind, information about all these different things. Right. And contemporary Native art just wasn't one of them.
Yeah, you were more interested in the historic.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you still focus primarily on that?
Exactly, yeah.
And so how do you see things have changed? You've been in this business as long as anyone, really.
Well, people got old. Lots of materials coming back out on the market from collections that are going into auction houses. Sometimes you get floods of material that sort of inundate the market to the point to where it's not what it was. There's no young people coming up in it. There's a lot of political things going on that have held people back from buying, young people primarily. The young people, and there's nobody to buy the 4s and 5s anymore. Everybody wants 10s and 11s.
Yeah.
And
the middle of the road.
The middle of the road stuff is just not saleable. Unfortunately, there's a lot of auction houses that will do it, but it's not profitable. I mean, I've got a 300 square foot warehouse full of boxes of stuff I'd love to see go away.
Well, there's ways.
There's ways. Yeah, there's ways.
And what do you find to be the things that you've enjoyed the most as far as this business?
The material, love the stuff. Always have. The people, the dealers, and the collectors. A lot of them. Yeah, some of them are better than others, but the integrity of the people that are in the business, 98% of them. The joy you get out of doing what you do. You know, it's like any business. If you enjoy what you do, you live longer.
Yeah, I think that's true for sure. And there's probably been some mentors along the way. Who would you think has done that kind of? Oh,
wow. Well, Bob Vandenberg's been a big influence on me as far as integrity goes and just generally being honest about how you conduct business. And his knowledge is just without bounds.
Yeah, we'll have Bob on, don't worry.
Okay. And, oh gosh, let me think. I mean, I wish I could, I can't, nobody jumps to mind other than that, but I'm sure there have been lots of people, you know, involved in this business that I would take my hat off to.
Right. And do you see, working in Dallas, do you see there's still an interest in Native arts? Because, I mean, when you think of Texas, at least I think in Texas, I think that's something they're really interested in the West and Cowboy.
No, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
It's not. It's the interest is not there. There's a young fellow that tried to do a show down there, and just because, this is my take on it, just because the history is there in the area doesn't mean the people are interested in it. Particularly Native American material. He was trying to do Native material and Western material, spurs, bits, stuff like that, saddles, and it just didn't work. Just didn't work. People couldn't come. Now, there's a lot of reasons why people don't come to a show. One of them is it costs $10 to park, it costs $10 to get in, it costs, this, and it's sort of like almost going to a cowboy game before it's over with. You can't take your family to something.
Right.
Like
Was
that.
this Brian LaBelle's show?
Yes, it's Brian LaBelle's Old West show. I didn't know whether you're supposed to.
No. Well, and I think Brian figured it out, and it's kind of interesting. You made
Brian's done really, really well with the Mesa show, the Old West, the High Noon thing, and he was in Cody, and then he was in Denver, and then he moved to Fort Worth, and then he's moved back to Santa Fe, which are his headquarters.
Right.
So I think that makes sense.
I think it comes back to what you said earlier on. that people want to come to Santa Fe from Texas to buy, right?
Pretty much.
And so he started doing his June show in Santa Fe, and as I understand, it's
been very successful.
Successful.
I did it in part the last time, which was a month and a half or 2 months ago, June, I think. And I didn't do it last year, and I had to ask somebody to let me have some of their booth so I could do it because it was so successful. But I thought it was too close to Indian Market, so I didn't do it. But turns out that particular summer, I was unable to participate in any of the shows for personal reasons. So I didn't go anyhow, but apparently it's been quite successful. Yeah. I'm glad for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so where do you see your future in this business?
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to do it as long as I can, sort of like Tom Petty says, you never slow down, you never get old.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to do it as much as I can for as long as I can. I enjoy the material. I've still got some left.
Yeah.
My kids could care, less about, they like some of it. My son, not so much. My oldest daughter has picked out a few pieces that she'd like to have. My youngest daughter likes the material, but, she'd probably take a few pieces if I gave them to her, but I've still got, as far as I'm concerned, at my age, I'm feeling good. I take care of my wife. My wife's had some health issues, but at home, I'm able to, thanks to the internet, I'm able to conduct business, do things. I don't do any appraisals anymore. I used to do a lot of appraisals, and I've quit doing that. There's 2 or 3 reasons for that, liability and a couple others. But I still get calls. I still have clients that call me and say, hey, remember that Cheyenne dress you sold me in 1989? I say, I think I want to get rid of that. Unfortunately, the market hasn't held up in some things. It has in some, but not in all.
Yeah.
So
things like jewelry, I think,
jewelry right now seems to be the best piece market that there is.
Yeah, but you're still buying.
I still buy because I still see. I don't buy it because it's cheap. I don't buy it because I think I can make money. I buy it because I like it.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of things I like.
Yeah. Well, I think it's amazing. You're kind of winding down as far as maybe age-wise, but nothing else has changed because you're still buying. You're still doing everything you ever did.
I'm trying to be very careful how I conduct my business, though, as far as the dollars and cents of it go. Yeah. It's there's a lot of issues at the moment, and I think everybody needs to be cognizant of things that are going on.
Though I did notice you had a bracelet that you picked up this morning.
I got into the chair and pulled a bracelet out of my pocket I bought this morning at the show. Yeah, you never learn.
I think that's kind of summarizes Native American art
Could
dealers.
be,
You know,
could
they
be.
love this
Yeah.
material.
Well, that's the thing. That's the reason we do it. I mean, we do it because we can make a living at it. Some of us. Over the years, it's just you learn a lot of stuff about this thing. You see something different and new, and it's cool.
And the culture.
Yeah, and the culture.
And the history.
The culture is neat. I knew a lot of Native people when I was growing up, and sort of grew up in some of that environment. And I like the people themselves, not any particular tribal affiliation or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother went to Eufaula Indian School down at Creek School in southern Oklahoma, and taught in the Creek Nation schools in Muskogee and Mounds and Okmulgee back turn of the century. She rode a buckboard from Kentucky with a pistol in her lap to Eufaula, Oklahoma in 1898 and went to school in Eufaula, graduated in 1902, I want to say. And we found all her teaching stuff. It's sort of cool, really. Chile McIntosh was the principal chief then. And somehow or another, Quanah Parker was involved in that thing. Now, he must have had something to do with the school system in Oklahoma at the time. But his
name was there?
Yeah, he's there. And then she met my dad and my granddad in 1907, and they got married. That was statehood. Yeah. And anyhow, that's that side of the family. Anyhow.
All right. Well, I know you probably want to get back.
No, this has been fun. Thanks, Mark. We've been trying to do this, whomever's out there. Yeah. We've been trying to do this for 2 weeks, and I haven't been able to do it because it's been a good show, I have to say, with respect to Kim and John and Blake, who also works very hard at this. Yeah. This has been a good one.
Yeah, no, people are still interested in this material, and new clients are coming in. And,
right.
You know, one of the reasons I do this podcast is to reach other people out there that go, oh, I might really be interested.
Well, this is really nice of you to do this. I mean, maybe nice isn't the best way to do it. You're perpetuating history. Yeah. In a way.
You're part of that history.
Yeah. And in a way, I guess I am.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Bought your first piece in 1959.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's been a while.
That's, that's 60 years.
Yeah, don't say it like that.
It is, though. Sorry, but it's true.
Scary.
All right, we'll let you go.
Thanks,
Michael
Mark.
McKissick, Waterbird Traders, thank you very much for having us on.
Thanks,
all right.
Bye. All right.
That's not hard, right?
Nah.
That's good.
All you did is just talk.
I know, right?
We need your support for the Medicine Man Gallery channel, so make sure to click the subscribe button and tap the little bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video, which we do every morning on Wednesday and Friday. See you soon.